welcome to today's episode of Spec Steppin, where we are stepping through the Web API spec. In today's episode, we're going to cover the Fullscreen API. So, as usual, we'll start with the documentation on MDN. So, Fullscreen API is pretty much what it sounds like. It's the ability to take elements and make them full screen. So, kind of breaks them out of the Chrome of the browser, if you will. This would probably be good for like video elements. It would be good for maybe games, if you've developed games, those types of things. There could be a myriad of things that you'd want to have it go full screen. So this is a pretty cool element. Now, this one's a little bit different than other APIs in that, just like it says here, it doesn't have any interfaces of its own. It basically takes other interfaces and piggybacks on them, if you will, so augments them. So there's a bunch of methods in here. I'll let you read the documentation, but let me quick jump to the demo and then I'll show you my code. So here, I just have a stage element, and instead of logging to the console, I'm actually logging to this element right here. And then we have some properties. Full screen enabled true. So I have enabled full screen, and then full screen elements null. I mean, there's not a full screen element right now because we're made it small. And then the last event was the initialization of the application. So there's a couple different ways I can do it. First of all, I'm actually also saying that it's supported. Again, always want to check the browser, but I can click on this button. So I can click it, and then I can exit that one. I can click it again and go full screen. I can click this button and exit. I can hit my enter or return key, which I just did. I can hit my escape key. I can hit enter. I can hit enter again. There are a myriad of ways that I can get in and out of full screen, which is good for a UI for the end user. So you see, I logged it all here. So I requested full screen of the stage. It's set, and then requested exit full screen. Then it sent it to null. So you can see that here, you could send these to, if you're playing with this, send them to your console if you want to see them as well. But let me just jump to the code now and show you kind of how this works. So first of all, the HTML is nothing really fancy. I just have some, text there and just using some divs, and I created a div for a stage. This element right here, that with the ID of stage, is the one I wanted to toggle back and forth. And then I just have some stylings in there and some buttons and stuff just to make it work. So nothing fancy. You wouldn't have to necessarily do this. And I have some CSS to make it prettier, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do it this fancy. You could just do plain black and white if you want to just make something bigger. But let me just jump to where the code actually happens. So now I have some notes at the top there. So you take the element and you actually have a method called request full screen. So that makes it go into full screen. And then exit full screen is a method that makes it leave and go back to normal. So, and then full screen document.fullscreen element tells what element is the full screen element right now. So, and then whenever there's events, so full screen change, anytime it goes back and forth, entering and exiting, that fires. If there's an error, that event will fire, and then it'll give you some information. I have found that it gives some information on different browsers more than others. So it may not, if you're using a lesser browser, lesser common browser, it may not give you as much information. But all I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing the pieces of the document, the HTML document, one of the key ones being the stage, and then the buttons and stuff. And then timestamp, I'm just putting a timestamp on it so I can see when it happens. So sometimes I do that when I'm debugging. And then this logging function, all it does is takes my message, puts a timestamp on it, and then goes into my div, creates a div element, adds the text content. If it's equal to error, it classifies the error. Otherwise, it appends it to the log and scrolls it to the top. So that's this right here. Okay. Nothing fancy there. And then I'm going to skip over the update UI because that's where it's actually happening. So I want to jump over it a little bit. Where part of it's happening. So here I have a method that's a function that's detecting whether it's supported or not. So if it's supported, that it can request full screen and exit full screen. If those properties are available as functions, it's supported. Otherwise, I'll say it's not supported and show it. Otherwise, it is supported and says try clicking the button and pressing enter. That is where it is right here. And then if I clear the log, it'll show it as there as well. So let me jump back here and I'm going to go back to the update UI in just a second. I just want to show you the event listeners. You saw how I use various ways, clicking, hitting the enter key, escape, all that stuff. And basically I just added the full screen change and errors and clicks and all that stuff to have this happen. So here I have an event listener on full screen change. All I'm doing is I'm listening for the full screen change and I'm just saying whether the element is full screen or not. You could do something fancier, but that's all I'm doing. And I just update the UI. Now let me jump up to the update UI function. So it just takes the last event and I just have a constant there. And I change the value of the text content and the element, whether it's null, what the tag name and everything is, and then take the text content of event val. Now, event val up here is, let me find it here, right here. So last event, and then you have event val there. So event val, and I'm going to get rid of that search there so it doesn't highlight things. So that is what I'm doing is I'm updating this right here. Yeah, right there. So I basically say, okay, I grab what the event is, grab the name, change the text content to what the event is of the name and whether it's full screen or not. And then tell it whether it's enter full screen or exit full screen, things like that. So, and that's changing the buttons. So see, enter full screen, exit full screen. That's what this UI. So it takes, this function is just one function that takes care of all the UI changes, changing enter to exit, changing the last method that I called, or last state, I should say, of the event, whether it's disabled or not down here with the buttons, those just updating UI. That's all that's doing. And then if I have a full screen error, I'm catching that. I don't have any right now, but you always want to code defensively. If I have a full screen error, I want to show that on the screen as well. So here I have the click controls for the toggle button at clear log. Clear log does just that. It just, boom, just clears the log right there. And let me go here and get back. There we go. Now we have some more log events. So that's all that does, just clears it out, basically removes the text content. And then here I'm looking for a click on the toggle button and a click on the exit button. So I'm toggling full screen here and I click on the button. Here, if I click on the exit button, I'm exiting full screen right there. So this toggle full screen is where the actual full screen stuff happens. So if there is a full screen element in a document, then I'm taking that document and telling it I want to exit full screen. So if there is an element that is tagged with a property of, hey, this is full screen now, it finds it and then takes that document and I call the exit full screen that removes it from full screen. Otherwise, I request full screen. And this, I'm just hiding the navigation on some browsers. Will still have navigation at the top. I'm hiding that. And it will request the full screen on here. I'm doing it on the stage, which is the element that I'm requesting to be full screen. So and I grab that up here, right there. So I could have set any element and told it to go full screen here, but I'm just doing that stage. So I'm doing it on the click, and I also showed you how I clicked enter and it did it. That's what I'm listening for a key down event. And basically this key down event, anytime I'm pushing on a key, it will trigger the key down event. But I'm preventing accidental submission. So I'm preventing default behavior because I don't want that. But then what I'm doing prior to that is I'm checking the key. So anytime you have the key down event, the event property, object, I should say, that event object, one of the properties is what key was actually pushed. So I have the enter or return key, same thing. If I would have hit any other key, so let me go back here. So I hit enter, boom, full screen, escape. Now I'll hit my G key, nothing. My H key, nothing. And that's because I'm looking that the key is actually the enter key. And then I call that toggle full screen, tells that stage element to go full screen because it's not. And then this is optional depending on some browsers. Most browsers actually do this, but if you're working with an audience with a lesser or an older browser, you may want to do this where I am saying if they hit escape, then I want to toggle it, but it would do it by default normally on up-to-date browsers, but that's just a fallback. This detect support, I showed you that earlier. That just tells, is just a check to see if this functionality exists within the browser. And I always recommend on doing that with functionality, particularly functionality that might be a little more cutting edge. This one's been around for a little bit, but I always want to check to make sure functionality is supported. That way I can provide some nice fallbacks. And then I'm updating UI with the initial init. So that is, here we go, the initial init. That's what updated that. And then stage focus, all that does, that's just a little thing where I am telling it to provide focus to this stage element. As I left it there, if I refresh, there it provides focus on. That's just a little tidbit there. But basically, you grab an element on your screen programmatically, you provide some event functionality, key down, clicks, what have you, and say, okay, now I want that particular element that I grabbed to go, I want to request full screen. And now the document object has a full screen element property populated. Then you can request for that one to exit full screen and it'll go back to normal. So boom, boom, like that. So pretty cool functionality. You may not use it on a lot of applications, but on some applications where you're building some things where you want to allow the end user to be able to make something bigger, like maybe on a dashboard or if you have some sort of spreadsheet type functionality, you want to make that full screen, that sort of thing. It just allows you to be able to do this natively, which is pretty cool functionality. If you have any questions on this, let me know. Otherwise, happy stepping.